Hey, what is up guys, MKBHD here. So ever since that top 5 phones of 2013 video, I've gotten a lot of questions about this. This is the 32GB white Nexus 5, which I called the closest thing to my daily driver. And a lot has actually changed about this phone since it first came out around 2 months ago. Some software has changed, and actually some hardware too, believe it or not. So this is the Nexus 5 revisited. Now, I'll have my original Nexus 5 review linked right below that like button for anyone who missed it or just wants to see it again. But if you remember that video, I was actually a pretty big fan of the hardware and the choice I made of the Stormtrooper white or panda design over the all matte black Nexus 5. And I'm so glad I made this decision. My biggest concern with it was not the glossy sides, but actually whether or not it would get dirty. And so far it really hasn't. It's the same bright white as the day I took it out the box. It's only been 2 months, but you know, it's good to know that it's not discoloring. And I obviously take really good care of my phones, but this phone goes in and out of my pocket all the time and still looks fresh. I also thought that maybe the white earpiece would become a focal point if it ever got dirty, but again, it's just as clean and subtle as ever. And more I've noticed that the white and black two-tone design actually kind of makes the phone appear a little bit thinner. Overall, maybe I'm just imagining things, but essentially I'm really happy with the design and the hardware nearly 2 months after taking it out the box. But a few things have also changed about the Nexus 5 since that day. First of all, it's launched with Android 4.4. Now it has gotten 2 software updates to bring it to Android 4.4.2 KitKat. So there's a new software here. It basically makes the biggest change to the camera. So now while the image quality is just a slightly better with a little bit better colors and contrast and a bit more saturation, it's mostly about the shooting speed here. So if you remember the old camera took several seconds to switch to HDR plus mode and take an HDR shot, and even the regular shots you took were a pain. It took a couple of seconds and it was really difficult to get a confident shot. Now opening the camera software and taking a regular shot is much faster with the new software, with the in-between shot time basically shrinking to almost 0 again, and HDR plus mode is about as fast as taking regular photos was before on the old software. Plus, you get this sweet animation to let you know that you're actually doing work when you're taking an HDR shot. So basically, it really does make sense now to leave HDR mode on all the time to take better shots, but if you ever just really need to fire off some quick snaps, the Nexus 5 is finally ready to do that at a reasonably fast speed. So now, while the Nexus 5 might not be the best camera in any smartphone, I mean, it's still definitely not the best, at least it's not a pain to shoot with anymore, and that's a big complaint that a lot of people, including me, had when we first got it. Now, another extremely specific thing that has changed about the Nexus 5 is the speaker. Now, it turns out there's a new hardware revision of the Nexus 5 in the Google Play Store that has slightly bigger speaker grill holes. And the only way to tell if you have the new one or not is actually to look at a picture of the old versus the new one and see which one looks more like yours. But I mean, if you've had yours for more than a week, you probably have the old one. But unfortunately, from experience, it doesn't really matter. From hearing the old and the new, the speakers on this $350 smartphone just are not good. That hasn't changed. You'd be better off with headphones anyway. But other than that, the rest of Android 4.4.2, that whole KitKat experience is basically as you would expect, clean, smooth, and polished as ever. Now, since this Nexus 5 is the phone I keep coming back to after testing and using other phones, at least for the past 2 months, I figured I'd show you guys basically my default standard home screens, and you can judge them all you want, but it's basically a pretty simple setup that I have, and I like it a lot. I only have 3 home screens other than the Google Now page, and 2 of them are completely widgets. So the first one is Dash Clock widget is my default. I have a couple of plugins in here actually to give me some glanceable information, and I'll have links to all of these things, the important ones, below. But yeah, Dash Clock is basically the best. Besides Dash Clock, I have on the second home screen the Today Agenda widget. My life kind of relies on Google Tasks and Google Calendar, so that's where my pretty calendar is always at for me. And to the right of that is my little grid of my most used apps, like daily used apps. So feel free to judge all you want. I pretty much open all of these apps on every phone I test every day. But yeah, that's the setup. Of course, I have a ton more apps in here. If you look in my app drawer, you know, if you want to pause on any of these screens to get some ideas for yourself, feel free. Those are all the apps I have installed, which isn't actually a whole ton, but it's what I feel is necessary. And also, for those of you who care, yes, I have turned on the Art Android runtime, and I'm loving it. And something else that's nice is I've seen battery life get better on the Nexus 5 since day one. Again, back in my initial review, I couldn't get the Nexus 5 to last me a full day with the typical heavy use that I have, but strangely, the battery life has consistently gotten better and better, and now it lasts me through the day. Almost like I had to break in the battery or let it figure itself out or something. Plus, I picked up the wireless charger, so now I'm pretty much set not to worry about this battery anymore. So that's the Nexus 5 a few months later. Even though I carry it, I do still recommend the Moto X to a lot of Android switchers, just because it fits in people's hands better usually. But just because of all the fixes to some of the biggest software flaws on the Nexus 5, mainly the camera and actually the battery, this is solidifying itself as one of the best smartphone options out there, especially because of the super low price, which you just can't forget about. I carry it often with the Sony RX100 in the other pocket when I want to take some actually good photos, or sometimes even with the iPhone or whatever other phone I am testing. And a lot of the other phones and stuff that I immediately get are just compared to the Nexus 5. It's the benchmark. So there you have it. Thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you guys very soon in the next one. Peace.